Ooh, we're back, baby. Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSopos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider, gentlemen. We are still the number one team. Moved to
And
4-0.
still,
And still the number one team in the nation. Moved to 4-0. Another dominating performance, 51-3. We covered the 44.5. Arch Manning, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. We got our first 100-yard rusher of the season, Jaden Blue, who had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 scores in this one, 3 scores on the ground, hat trick running the football, bunch of sacks, bunch of tackles for a loss, 2 picks and a safety. Really dominant win by the Texas Longhorns over the Warhawks. We have another game at home, first taste of the SEC against the Mississippi State Bulldogs, where we are a 38.5-point favorite. Toss, that's what we opened up at? Yep. Okay. Takeaways. It's another, I wouldn't say perplexing game, but a lot of good, some not so good in this game. So maybe on offense and defense, Toss, will start with you, then Nick, then I'll close. Takeaways on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it already, but the impact player in this game on the offensive side of the ball was Jaden Blue for me. And the takeaway is that he can be our bona fide number one back and lead our team in rushing and be a guy who can make defenses pay between the tackles. And of course, once he bounces it to the outside, he's so good at making that cut to make a DB miss. He had, I think it was our second possession where he was stopped like 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, broke the tackle, broke out of it, and ended up turning it into a 5-yard gain that was in the red zone. And that's just the type of slippery back that he is, right? And we saw the same kind of action with Jonathan Brooks. We saw the same kind of action with Bijan Robinson. He's just another guy that can make people miss. So I'm excited that he's healthy. I love that we utilized him. I think that's absolutely intentional, of course. We needed to make a statement to the SEC defenses. We are not worried about Mississippi State, but it is our inaugural SEC game, so we need to make a continued statement and impress as the number one team in the nation. But whenever you get a Gettysburg, that's what I'm calling it, 4 scores, that's a solid day for a guy on the ground and in the air. There's no one else that I can point out. I'm sure the two of y'all will get into some of Arch's play, and I'll be happy to chime in there.
Yeah.
Defensively, our guy, I think, Nick, you picked him as an impact player, and all of us have frequented him as an impact player last year and this year. Anthony Hill is just cementing himself as the engine of this defense. And he had the pick, should have been a pick 6, honestly, ticky-tack flag call. But he took that thing all the way back to the house. And the previous drive, he had the sack. And those were after an Arch interception. So how your defense responds and making sure your defense gets the opposing offense off the field early and quickly is huge. And he's instrumental in doing that. So I was, as always, impressed by Anthony Hill Jr.
Nice. Nick?
Yeah, the run game is solid. Exactly what you want to see, especially when, you have your backup quarterback in there and you don't want him to take as many hits, and, you want to control the game clock, of course. And, we had 5 touchdowns on the ground, so there's definitely no shortage of scoring output when we hand the ball off, which, we've scored touchdowns on the ground this year, but definitely not as much as they have been in the air. So it was nice that we were able to do that and punch it in from the goal line. Obviously, we can continue to sing Jaden Blue's praises, but, all those running backs did pretty well. Gibson definitely underwhelmed a little bit just in terms of like his yards per carry. I think he was kind of failing to hit that second gear after he got across the line of scrimmage, but, only had 9 carries. So, it looks like every game that he's played so far, like it was over 10 carries, and this was his least amount of touches in the season so far. So chalk it up to maybe just not, getting all the touches that he thinks he wanted. In terms of the wide receivers, like everyone, got their share. No one really took control of getting the massive load. It's just more of just spreading the ball out here. The one thing that I was noticing all game, I'm sure everyone notices, is that Arch is not afraid to let it loose. He definitely loves the deep ball, and it worked for us, obviously, but that's not going to always work against top 10, top 20 SEC defenses. There's ball hawks out there. that will go up and make the play on those balls and turn it over. And so I don't necessarily know that I love the amount of deep balls that I was seeing. We completed a couple big ones. We completed one to Bond. We completed one to Golden. Almost completed that one to Silas Bolden that got overturned, which would have been a terrific catch. He made some snags this game, by the way. He's definitely turned it around for me in my book.
I hated that call.
Yeah, that's bad. But regardless, he's letting it loose, and it's exciting. It's very exciting when it's completed, but it also really makes your stomach kind of, drop for a second, or your heart stop for a second, because like I said, you see that ball get hung up in the air too long. You see another defender 50-50 ball. You see, God forbid, two defenders that can come away as a pick. And Arch did throw 2 picks this game. So it really kind of showed his inexperience here and his maturity. One of the picks really bad at the beginning of the game in triple coverage. You basically just tuck that ball away and run it, or take the sack, or even throw it away, but you can't throw it into triple coverage like that. So you got some learning to do here, but if anything, it just kind of proves to this game that, like, Arch is good, he's talented, but the inexperience is still there, and Quinn is definitely our guy.
Yes.
To put it, you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, but to put it succinctly, Arch is a college quarterback, Quinn's a pro. Defenses in the NFL, you run 2 safeties over the top, you don't get to throw that ball. So then what do you do?
I don't think he may be completing one pass, like one of those deep balls, and maybe 2 other ones are getting picked.
Well, the Bond one, honestly, that one probably should have been a touchdown. Credit to that safety for tripping up Bond there, but he caught him in stride. He really had just open space, and it was about 15 more yards. He would have been in the end zone. The Golden catch was contested. Like, Golden made a heck of a catch to pull that thing down. Like you mentioned on the pick, Arch broke a sack, and then another guy was coming. He stepped up in the pocket, and he threw it into triple coverage basically. So it's just the decision making, like you talked about. Like, take the sack. There was another play where I think there was 3 guys in the backfield. He broke another sack and then tried to hurdle a different guy, and it's just like, do the little things, because you don't have to make a hero play every single time you touch the ball. You're so capable of it, but we especially don't need that against ULM.
There was also something that the broadcast team kept referring to, and it was Fozzie Whitaker, obviously, who's a Texas guy, and he loves the team. Quan's a good friend of him as well, but they were saying that Arch has been taking way more hits than Quinn usually does. Whether it's just sacked, or taking a hit after you release the ball, or whatever it may be. I don't know if he senses pressure as well as Quinn does. I mean, that's also an experience thing too, but also maybe just not getting the ball out quick enough. So little things that are going to have to improve over the course of his time here, just to get him ready to play next year. Hopefully, Quinn is ready to roll next week, because we'd love to have that tune-up game, give him one game before he sees OU, but still okay with not rushing it, especially being a 38.5 point favorite against Mississippi State.
At home too. It's another game at home. And I think, before I get into, some other stuff outside of Arch, I think on the point of Arch, you really see it's his first career start. And I think he kind of realized, yes, this wasn't a top tier opponent, but there still is a stark difference between college football and high school football. And I think he kind of got that welcome to the league moment this past week. Look, he has the tools, he has the skill set. Just because it's there, you don't always have to take that shot. And sometimes less is more. And I think that's something it's a tool that you have to work into your arsenal as a quarterback. If just because the bomb is there doesn't mean you have to take it every single time. Like, you have to kind of work the clock, work your intermediate routes, pepper your guys. Yes, the big catches are great. I would have been more stoked if Bond had 6 for 60 versus, the 2 for 75 that he had. That means he's peppering him. That means he's working the short routes. And that means, again, like, we're eating at the clock, which is a big thing that we have to do to win football games, not just get great highlights. The highlights are insane. He's big. He's fast. He could take hits. That's great. But you're right. He definitely doesn't sense the pressure that Quinn does. And it's the timing thing. Like he thinks he has more time than he actually does, but realistically he doesn't. He thinks defenders are farther away than they are, but realistically they're ball hawks. These guys are college safeties. Whether they're like a top tier SEC program or ULM, these guys are still starting safeties in college football. So I think the second pick wasn't as bad, obviously, but I think he has to get acclimated a little bit. And we saw Quinn make some of these mistakes when in his first year starting, and then just it's a time thing, it's a maturation thing, and we're gonna see it from this kid. There's too many physical tools. There's too many like true capabilities of superstardom that he won't put it all together. But I'm not the result. We got the exact result we wanted, and also in a sense got a similar result of, hey, Arch, like you're not going to be able to come in and week out. Like someone said it last show, where you're up by a bunch, fresh off the bench, crowd behind you, the excitement's there, you can blow the roof off with 5 scores. It's not always going to be like that. And then, you know, I think it took him a little second to get cooking in this one, but when he did, I think he settled down and played pretty nicely. And I feel very confident with him at quarterback going to Mississippi State. Defensively, Leona Lefau has to be highlighted.
For sure.
I mean, what a, you know, I wanted the Anthony Hill was doing so much like dirty work, and I wanted the Anthony Hill moments for him. I wanted the sack. I wanted the pick. Like that was something I called for in our last show, and I'm happy we got that. But Leona Lefau, again, it just goes to show you, like he's a 3-star on some sites, low 4-star on other sites. Like stars don't matter. Best players play, and Sark is getting the right guys to come in here. And he came in safety, sack, like he was all over the place and absolutely capitalizing and proving to be one of the top tier producers on this defense. And he's a guy week in and week out that's starting to do this. And it, along with Simmons, Hill, Burke, all of our safeties are hitting like I've never seen them hit before. I mean, Taff almost got kicked out of the game. These guys are flying to the ball. They're playing very aggressively, but he's a part of that. And he needs to be highlighted, in my opinion. Something else I want to highlight to you guys: 1 yard, 3 yards, 17 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, 1 yard, 1 yard. Those are all of our scores. Yes, this won't happen against the SEC. They are bigger, but that also goes to show you in the goal line, in the red zone, our offensive line are moving people at will. And they are getting the easy buckets that you need to convert and get on, which again is just a testament to, I think, Jaden Blue, who got shouted out this week on Twitter. He then retweeted something and shouted out the entire offensive line. And it goes to show you, I really truthfully believe that we maybe have the best offensive line in all of college football collectively. And when push comes to shove, when we have to see Georgia, who has a really tough test against Alabama this upcoming weekend on the road, they are favored in that one, which is very peculiar, very interesting. They are favored in that game. We'll see how they are. We'll see how Bama is. It's the true first test for both these squads. I think that our Texas team, depending on how they play, can really handle them up front. We have some real pros out there. I mean, obviously we mentioned Banks, but Campbell, Majors, like these guys all come to play and do their job to a T every single week. And I think ultimately, no matter who's under center, no matter our receivers, if we win the national championship, I think the biggest reason is going to be because of this offensive line and how well they're playing and how succinct they are with one another.
No doubt. I mean, you look at the template for Michigan last year, and you've looked at the Ohio States, and you look at the Bamas and the Georgias. Like you're always seeing those guys hit the draft and be pros. So that's just kind of how Sark miraculously recruited. And it's not over here, right? Like after these guys are gone, like we've got guys waiting. Like we saw a little glimpse of Brandon Baker, who was the top offensive tackle in last year's class, and he got to come in for a play that and he's gonna probably be one of the best offensive tackles in the nation at some point. So, continuing to build those trenches is huge. But quickly on the defense again, yeah, you're right, man. Like Lafo was insane. Like all over the place, just heat-seeking missile. Our safeties, playing well. I'm so sick of ticky-tacky targeting calls that are obviously not targeting. Like it was just because it's a big hit, and like he laid the boom on him, doesn't necessarily mean it's targeting. Like he clearly like led with his shoulder and his arm, and like there's nothing with leading with the crown. Didn't even hit him in the head. Like that's just a referee just being soft.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna review that.
They reversed the call. So honestly,
I
I would give credit to the referees there, because you're playing it safe by being a referee. You never want to jeopardize player safety. So to throw the call, then to review and accurately make the right call, to me is the best way to go about doing it. And look, Taft still got to play in the rest of that game. He was a part of that safety. He got in on there. So I understand what you're saying, but ultimately they made the right call, and that's what happened.
And to me too, it's like there's literally no other play he could make. Like,
None.
The other play for him is letting the guy go and scoring a touchdown. Like, that's it.
That was a hit. That hit to me from the jump, there was never a doubt in my mind. That was not an illegal hit, but they will throw that every time because for that penalty, they have the ability to review it. So they're going to err, like Taz is saying, on the side. They're going to err on the side of caution. If it looks a little sketchy to them from the sideline, they're going to throw it. Then they can review it, and it's a reviewable penalty. So they'll always take that into consideration. But I'm with you. I think from the jump, like that's the play. Like you have to make that hit, and he didn't lead with his head. It was not helmet to helmet. Should stay in the game, and they made the right call. And he's again another guy on our team. Like, his story is crazy, right? We've spoken about it time and time again. He's a guy that's really making a name for himself and is showing vast improvement on our defense. And all these guys are playing so well together. It's a very tough defensive backfield to throw against, yes. But when you get to that second level and you want to break away as an offensive player, it's not easy because all these boys are thumping. And that's a great spot to be as a Texas defensive backfield. And I did want to say quickly, someone briefly brought up Michigan. They took care of business against USC. They changed the quarterback who can't throw, fine, but they ran the ball really well. And I think that goes to it's another testament to how prepared we were to enter the season. They clearly did not have the answers at quarterback. They didn't really have an offensive identity. They didn't know who their starting running back was. We came into the season ready to go, no questions really, and we were prepared to beat that team who turned around, defended their home turf, and beat USC, who's a good football program. USC's good. Like they had changes too, but they're a good football program. And Michigan took care of business, and I think that really highlights our win of how emphatically we beat the crap out of them even more.
And it goes to your earlier point, Josh, about how impressive our offensive line has been.
Yeah.
Miller Moss played a good game. He had a pick. He was sacked 4 times. Quinn Ewers was not sacked. So there you go. Like that's the difference. This is a Michigan defense with first round talent, in particular on the defensive line up front. And they were able to get to Miller Moss, and they had one of those sacks on that last drive where he was trying to win the game. So their defense did exactly what it has done for the last year and a half at home in particular. Same parameters that we played them on, and we dominated them. And that has to do with our offensive line. I also think, you're talking about Arch. Like, guess what, Arch? You better think you have enough time back there because you're not getting any more time than you already have with this crew as an offensive line unit. Like, he's got so much time back there. That's why he has an opportunity to throw the deep ball. That's why he has the opportunity to break these sacks, is because those are coverage sacks, which are happening 6 seconds after the ball has been snapped. So even more to just know and acknowledge for him, like, here's how quickly I need to make decisions. And to the earlier point about, he's taking all these hits. In high school, those hits didn't matter, right? Like, some of it's just him learning, hey, I know I'm big. I know I'm strong. I know I'm fast, but I do have to take care of my body. This is a long haul for me. This is a long journey. I want to play till I'm 40, right? Look at what happened with my uncle. Look at what happened with, injuries happen to anyone. Like, whether you have a propensity to get them because of genetics or not. And especially when you're playing a contact sport like football, where they talk about all the time, it's like a car crash out there every time you get hit, right? So he just has to, he has to acknowledge that even if he's 6'4" and he's getting hit by a 5'9" DB, it still matters. Those hits still matter. So it's a learning curve for him for sure. I will say, I bet the DB room is having a chuckle about that one catch that their tight end Mixon had. He played a tremendous game. He trucked Makuba. And I bet they're having a good laugh about that. But Makuba obviously has laid some hits. He's been tremendous this year. It's no knock on him, but I feel
nothing
like
Makuba could have done. That guy was like 280.
He's huge. He was absolutely a unit. But there were some good moments, and it just shows the competency, like you were talking about, Josh, of this ULM team. But we made General Booty look silly. We made them play 3rd and long, 4th and long a lot. And that has to do with our pursuit, our tackling, which has been tremendous all season. Again, USC beat LSU week 1. they had an opportunity to bottle up that rushing attack for Michigan. But on that one run, Mullins broke 2 tackles and went 60 yards, put him in a position to score to win that game. We're not missing those tackles. We're not that type of defense. And I love that.
Yeah, we made General Blue look like Lieutenant Ass Cheeks.
That's we did, honestly. Yeah, it's a really tough name for a kid. I can't believe they did that.
Oh shoot. You know why?
Shout out to their family. All right, guys, let's close this one out. Heisman rankings.
Oh, just real quickly.
Oh.
How crazy accurate is Vegas? This over-under for this game was 53.5. The game ended 51-3.
There, it's crazy.
We blocked a field goal at the end of the first half.
And got a safety.
And we got a safety. Like just little things that how could they know? But then they end up obviously looking like they've always known.
Bro, it's Vegas for a reason. Like, I was texting one of our buddies about this, because obviously we've been doing a lot of gambling on our show, and we have a ton of buddies who bet, talking about it with guys. He's like, I let Vegas do the work, and then I just follow off of that because they're literally, that's their job. Like, their job is to make these lines, and they're typically tight for a reason and on the money for a reason, and I think, I mean, we were talking about it, how I at least thought we were going to cover and go under because I thought we were going to blank them. We almost did, when 51-3.
Wait, so he says he lets Vegas do the work?
Yeah, he lets them make the bets. He lets make the spreads, the lines, and then he just goes off he just kind of sees and feels based off what they do. Like, it's not like he's like doing intense research on football, basically, and breaking down like insane, like against the spread in the last 3-year trends. Like, he just like looks at the line, scopes it out based on like lets it inform him of how they see this game going, and then he makes a decision. Like, it's not, he doesn't do too much.
You got to be careful because we're giving him credit for our game. This past week in the NFL were terrible. So the lines were.
The NFL's a little different. I feel like, I don't know why.
Sure, for sure.
College,
I would almost, wouldn't you think that college is more of a crapshoot to a certain respect with the best teams in the nation? No, but with the middle of the pack teams, like there's a lot of parity that is unexpected, in my opinion.
There was not a game that shocked me this weekend.
I think in college, there's just a way bigger discrepancy in skill and a way bigger discrepancy in just how good teams are, from the worst team to the best team.
Sure.
Even from the best team to like the 10th best team.
It's more straightforward. You're right. There's only, like we've been talking about, there's only 5 10 out of 10 teams, and we know which teams are the 8 out of 10s, right? And so there's a reason why
5 than 10 teams. Yeah.
There's a reason why a lot of people had Tennessee to dominate OU, right? Because we've seen it. We've seen the tape, and we know who these teams are. So yeah,
there was one game that shocked me before we get into Heisman races. I am a little surprised BYU put the beat down.
Yeah, I mean,
that bad. That was a late game. That was like, that game just exploded, and I was like, whoa. But other than that, there was no real like shocks. Like, I don't think anyone's shocked that Illinois beat Nebraska. Like, I don't think anyone should be shocked that Michigan won that game. I don't know. Like, I was looking all around. I mean, maybe the biggest surprise, and it's very telling. Like, we learned a lot about 2 SEC teams. We learned that Tennessee can go into someone else's house. Well, we learned a lot about 3 SEC teams, I would say, this weekend. We learned that, Tennessee could go to someone's house and take care of business, not even just offensively, but defensively. We know that OU's offensive identity is not what they thought it was, and they're still struggling to figure that out under Venables. And then we also learned that maybe Vandy's not such a walkover, and Mizzou is not in that tier of us, Bama, Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss. They might not be.
Well, hold on, because we haven't learned anything from Ole Miss yet because they haven't played anybody.
It's true too. They haven't played anybody. Yeah. And who do they even have this upcoming week? Do they have a bye?
Okay.
Well, that's not a gimme game. That is not a game. We're gonna
like Nick's talking about. Like, that's they played 1 out of 10s. Kentucky's at least a 5 out of 10, right? Probably more so
they're 6. They're 6 out of 10. They took what was supposed to be the number 1 team in the nation to the brink.
Yeah, where is that game? Is it in?
It's in Ole Miss, in the Grove.
The Grove.
Okay.
Yeah,
changes things, but yeah.
Cool. Nick, start us off. Top 5 Heismans.
Cam Ward, number 1, sticking with him, just continuing to do his thing and ball out. Number 2, got Ole Miss's Jackson Dart in there, add 4 more touchdowns to his resume. Having that many touchdowns, having that many yards, you're 4-0. It's got to give you the love. Number 3, Quinn takes a step back just because Jackson jumps him. Obviously, he doesn't play this week, but we're not going to completely knock him. If anything, I liked what Quinn was doing on the sideline, pumping up his team. I think we'll give him some love and credit there. Hopefully, he's back this week to get his name back in the mix. Number 4, Jalen Milroe didn't play this week, but I think he's still steadily right in there. And 5, Ashton Genty didn't even play the second half, but 11 carries, 127 yards to pretty much set him across the line for another 100+ yard game. And now Boise State is a top 25 team in the nation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cos?
I was a little disappointed that they didn't at least run him for a little bit in the third quarter.
Yeah,
because
200.
Yeah, I mean the yards per carry obviously is absurd still, and he did what he needed to do in that respect. I have Ward 1. They had a bye this week. This week is the big test, like you talked about, Josh. I have Milroe 2. I have Travis Hunter 3. I mean, this team is 3-1, right? My biggest knock was, what is their record going to be? And right now they are 3-1. And he had a forced fumble in that game at the very end of it to open up things for the Hail Mary, and then they win in overtime. So it was a huge win. I don't think Baylor's good, but they did what they needed to do, and obviously Travis Hunter was incredibly important in that win. Not to mention he had 100+ yards receiving as well. So I have him 3. I have Ashton Genty 4, only because they had limited run there. I wish, give him 230 yards on the ground. Just play him for 1 or 2 more drives. Like, he'll get there because he's just that good.
They're trying to go to the playoffs, though. I think that's maybe why.
Save him a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. And then I have Dart 5. I'd knocked him a little bit in impressive performance, but who's he doing it against? And then Beck and Ewers waiting in the wings. They're that 5 or 6 and 7 for me, but it's Ewers isn't playing right now, and Beck was on bye too. So those are the first 2 guys out.
Yeah, Milroe's still my number 1. No picks, 8 touchdowns in the air, 4 on the ground. I think this is obviously, he has his big test. Can he defend his house? New head coach against this, stifling Georgia defense, who's still unbelievably strong, and he gets to go head to head with Carson Beck. So I think he could have his Heisman moment. I have y'all's guy Ward at number 2. Again, he's playing better opponents than Jackson Dart this year for sure, and he's still dicing teams up. He looks like a real NFL draft prospect. I also have Travis Hunter 3. It's just insane. It's on it. He might be the most in shape athlete in all of sports. Like, it's crazy. It's absurd. The conditioning
is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. The conditioning is just ridiculous, and it's such a marvel that he's doing it at a high level that I have to have him in there.
I'd like to see his mile time. I'd like to see his marathon time. I just like to see him do these events that require insane conditioning.
Do you think Travis Hunter, no training? I mean, obviously he's training for football, but do you think Travis Hunter, no marathon training, could run a sub 3 mile? Do you think Travis Hunter, no marathon training, could run a sub 3 hour marathon?
What's I don't know.
3 is tough. Running sub 3 is really tough.
It is interesting because it's way more stop and go what he has to do, which to me is almost even more impressive.
Yeah, he can do it. The world record is 2 hours. He can do a sub 3.
I think so too. He's an elite athlete, world-class athlete.
Okay. 4, I have Ashton Genty. He's 2nd in the nation in rushing. He's played 1 less game. I do want to shout out Caleb Johnson of Iowa. We were watching a bit at an Iowa bar. I mean, he's also having a ridiculous, they have 1 loss, but he's also having a ridiculous season, and he balled out against Minnesota when they won that game. He is their best player. Their offense obviously typically stinks, throwing the ball at least, but if there's any excitement in the Iowa offense, it's this guy. He's not on my list, but I have to shout him out. He's number 1 in the nation in rushing. Ashton Genty played 1 less game, is number 2, 10 yards per carry is crazy. And then number 5, I have Jackson Dart. Quinn, I need to get back healthy to have him back in there, but his signature win against Michigan is obviously huge. Cool. All right, gents. We'll see you later this week with Dequan Cosby. Shout out to the listeners, and hook 'em horns.